What's going on, guys? This is Empty Box, and today we're going to be talking about recording your gameplay because this question has become more and more common, so I might as well go ahead and answer it once and once only and never have to see it again. Not likely, but anyways, let's begin. If you're wondering, what do I record my gameplay and commentary with? What software? Using Action, unless I'm playing R-Factor or GTR2 or any of the Gmod or 2-based sims, in which case I'm using this guy, DXtory, as well as NASCAR Racing 2003 season. Yes, I use two different softwares to do the same job for a reason. Most notably performance, because there is a performance difference. Some games like some software better than others. But to make this a very long, excruciating story, let's go ahead and start talking about things. If you're interested in making your own videos, this might be where you want to start watching. Let's start with this guy over here, Fraps. If you've ever gone to any forum and seen the question, how do I record my PC gameplay? Within the first three answers, every single time, Fraps. Always. It's always suggested everywhere. It's probably the most heavily suggested option out there. If you want something that just works, gets the job done, something simple, you're making short little videos, don't want to put a whole heck of a lot of time into it, nothing really super serious or anything, Fraps will get it done. Okay, that's pretty much the only strength it has. It generates large files. It has very, very large performance impact. And really, it's just not that good. In 2007, 2008, yeah, Fraps was the one to have because it was the best. But now, here in 2013, Fraps is not the best, honestly. And I don't think anyone would really agree with that, unless you're talking about how simple is it to use? Because here's all you do for setting up Fraps. What do I want my hotkey to be? Okay, boom. Hotkey. We're good to go. And it will work. We'll talk about capture settings a little bit later because that is a software-wide setting. It doesn't matter what software you're using because we need to talk about those settings. But let's talk about the more powerful software. Let's start with Action because it's sort of the middle ground between the two, so let's get that out of here. Action is much like Fraps in the sense that it's very simple to use. I mean, you can just go ahead and look at these options available on screen. You got your file format, which is a new feature coming from Fraps. If you haven't used Action before, it's going to be new if you're coming from Fraps. But really, you're going to be using AVI, which is the same thing that Fraps is going to be making. You got your file sizes, your video size, simple frame rate, same thing that you had over in Fraps. Nothing really all that more difficult. It's all there. You go into your more difficult settings, your more advanced settings. Boom. That really is all there is to it. Very simple. But this one has a much lower performance impact, I've found. Personally, I think Action runs perhaps the lightest, although it's going to depend on DXtory. And I've tried a lot of different software out there, and it really took me a while to finally conclude, oh, hey, Action, this is actually working really well, so this is going to be something worth purchasing. So I strongly suggest you try out all these, softwares because really there's a lot of them out there, as well as the fact that some of them work better than others for certain titles. Action does have the ability, although I've never used it, to actually export directly to YouTube. I can render out my video from there, which is something that you need to do regardless of what software you are using. Lots of different settings available here. I have never used this, so I can't give you an example of the quality. I should perhaps use it just for the hell of it one time, but pretty cool, pretty interesting. If that's something that you need, just want to get it out there, right there, built within the program. And you could also share it on Facebook and all that good stuff. But yeah. And you have three different modes. You have the game mode as well as the desktop capture, which is something that DXtory doesn't have, or something that I've never been able to find. Well, I think it's in there somewhere. An active desktop region, which is pretty cool, especially for you guys out there with a triple monitor setup. You could go ahead and actually draw out where you want to record at. So maybe you want to record in between your monitors. You could. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you could. Pretty interesting little feature. Nice to have, if anything. Very simple program, very easy to use, very friendly. and much better performance in my experience than Fraps. Although then we get this guy, the Power User Edition DXtory. I say Power User for a reason. Don't even bother with DXtory if you're not willing to spend a little bit of time making it work with whatever game you're playing. But if you do make it work, you will be rewarded with a very, very good recording program that works in a very wide variety of titles. And might I add, it works really well in a wide variety of titles. Now, one of the coolest features, and yes, I'm going to kind of nerd out on this feature a little bit here, is recording things into a different folder. So blindingly simple, but so amazing. Having the ability to record a game into a different folder and do that for every game if you want, I just knocked that off my desk, is really nice. Okay, it makes things nice, simple, and easy, and simply clean. If I want to toss my PlanetSide 2 footage into a PlanetSide 2 folder, I can do that. If I want to toss my Red Orchestra into a Red Orchestra folder, I can do that. If I want to record my R Factor 2 into my R Factor 2 folder, if I wanted to go ahead and set that up, I could. And everything could drop into their own little folder and be so much easier to find. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, that's really awesome. But let's get into some of the more options that DXtory offers, because that's really what sets it apart. This is the most powerful of the software out there. You have a wide variety of codecs that are available. The DXtory video codec is the one that is supplied by default. These options really don't seem to do much at all. I haven't noticed any difference, to be entirely honest. Especially on YouTube, you really don't need to worry about quality because, quite frankly, YouTube's going to poop on the quality anyways, and it's not going to matter in the end. But you have the DXtory, which seems to be the most efficient in terms of performance impact. Very low impact, although you do get somewhat medium file sizes. I wouldn't say they're smaller than Actions, although I wouldn't say they're really all that much larger. I'd say they're really pretty much the same. I mean, we are talking about files that are in the gigabytes, so it's not really a huge deal. Unless you're really, really pressed for space or whatever. But then if I'm playing a, FPS, or where I have, quote unquote frame rate to burn, I can use a Lagarith, which actually does make it a smaller file size, and that is a add-on codec, and definitely one worth having, I might add, because it basically compresses things down on the fly and does that for you, essentially. Really nice, really wide variety of features available. Your mileage may vary. That can really affect the performance that you get while recording. Some titles prefer one codec over another, and again, it's largely a lot of experimenting, but between the DXtory video codec and the Lagarith, you're pretty much set. Honestly, pretty much everything should record fairly well. You have a lot of different scaling options. I can even scale by percentages, which is something that neither Action or Fraps offers. If I want to record at 73% size, I can go ahead and do that. Absolutely pointless, because your video is going to look like crap because you need to make it an actual normal resolution for YouTube anyways. But you can do that. That's a great way to gain performance while recording. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Like Action, you do have multi-channel recording, where you can record different audio tracks. Basically, you can have your game recorded in one audio track, and then you have your microphone in another. Only here, you can record up to 8 different tracks. If you wanted to record a 7-man commentary, you can do that, and then have room for your game audio. You're probably never going to need that many inputs, but hey, it's there. And then we get into the thing that makes DXtory the most difficult to use out there, and the one that does take the most time, as well as tweaking. The advanced setting page. These really aren't advanced so much as they are required. Okay, these options will all have an effect on how your game is played while recording. How much of a performance impact there is. Really, the best way to figure out what you need is to just simply play around with them and figure it out until you get it right, and never touch it again. Okay, it's fairly time consuming, although I will say it shouldn't take you much more than probably about an hour or so to get things working right and have no frame rate issues or anything like that while recording, providing your PC can handle it. Again, I want to make sure that you guys do realize that you do have to have a fairly decent PC to record and play. Unless you want to turn down all your settings, all that stuff. But yeah, okay. Let's talk about the settings a little bit more, and I'm going to switch back to Action because it's the one I use most. File format AVI, you're going to see the same thing in DXtory as well. Same thing in Fraps, although they don't give you the option. Video size, 1080p. That's why I play in, so I record in 1080p. You might say you only upload in 720 though. Yeah, I only upload in 720 because I have crap upload speed. I could record down into 720, but I'll get to that here in a moment. The reason I would rather downsize things is because you'll get better quality than if you upsize things. Okay? If I record, I honestly don't want to be recording at 1280 by 720, even though that's what I'm going to be uploading. Now, why is that, you might say? Because things that are 2 pixels wide at 1920 by 1080, for example, just using hypothetical, at a 720 resolution become like 1 3/4 pixels wide. Okay, pixels are kind of, they either are or they aren't, and that's when you start seeing quality issues, is when you scale at awkward sizes. It's not a nice, neat, even percentage. That's why there is in DXtory, hotkeys to 175 and 50. Personally, I usually go down to 50 in DXtory if I need extra performance, because, again, I would rather cut things in half, make everything half the size, than make it kind of 3/4 the size, because 2 becomes 1, 1 becomes half, but most things aren't half a pixel anyway, so, pretty much half size or full size. Full size is ideal. Full size is the best, and that's kind of one of the things I wish Action had, actually. Would be half-size recording, just because I'd rather go half-size than 720, because 720 while recording 1080 honestly doesn't look that good. It doesn't really matter if you're using Action or DXtory, it just doesn't look as good as going from 1080 down to 720, or from half-size up to 720, in my opinion. And you'll see in Fraps as well, they only give you the option of full-size or half-size. There's no intermediate, which really, I think there should be no intermediate. Either full or half is the way you want to go, to be entirely honest. Frame rate, YouTube doesn't display anything more than 30 frames per second anyways. I believe there might be a couple of exceptions. If you have an extraordinarily large channel, you can get 60 frames per second, I've heard, but I don't know too terribly much about that. 30 will do, so long as you're not actually playing at 30 frames per second, because that absolutely sucks. But 30 is going to be more than enough for standard gameplay. If you're going to make a video montage edit type thing, gonna make a montage, you're gonna want to bump this up to 60. Heck, if you could, I know some guys out there, when they're recording, whatever FPS, Counter-Strike or whatever, CS 1.6 for the win, they can record at like 3,000 frames per second or something ungodly stupid like that, which you don't need to do that at all, if you're talking racing, okay? But, I guess in theory you could, but again, totally useless. For standard videos, you're going to use 30 frames per second. For, gameplay editing, you're probably going to use 60. Higher if you can, yes, but you're probably not going to be able to go higher, because it takes a heck of a rig to push frame rates even higher while recording. So that's that. Yeah. Any other questions? Hopefully there's no questions. That's how I record my gameplay. That's how I record my commentary. In terms of rendering out videos, I guess, I use Sony Vegas. Let's go ahead and just use a little bit of a demo. Which one is the smallest? This Corvette around Sebring. Just basically drag and drop it, and then it's going to process the audio, which, depending on the file, can take a long while. And DXtory also has the advantage of having a shorter processing time, I found, by a very long shot compared to Action. For example, if this was a DXtory video, this would be already done. So that's that. But as you can see, when I drop this file in, I have 2 different audio channels. I have the game channel, which is this top one, and then I have my microphone channel, which is this bottom one, which you'll probably see absolutely nothing. And then I can play around with things. You know, I can turn the volume up if I need to. I can turn it down and whatever. Now when I go to render out my video in Sony, so that way I can actually upload this to YouTube, first thing I do is right click on this video track, switches, disable resample. I learned this trick a long time ago, sort of because someone pointed it out to me, and my life has never been the same, so to speak. So make sure you do that. You'll get better quality. You won't have that ghosting between frames, which once you notice it, you will never unnotice it. And I basically just double click on where I want to record, drag out my little tracks, and file render as, and use one of these presets down here, Internet 720, and then I usually render out at 7,000 bit rates for 720p or 14,000 for 1080, and get a fairly decent result. I mean, if you want to improve your quality on YouTube, one of the best things you can do is to just throw bit rate at it, pretty much. Although you got to remember that's also going to be much longer. That's going to take to upload, which if you're a guy like me who's got terrible upload speed, you really don't have the space to just go ahead and throw bit rate at it. So 7,000, 14,000, they work pretty well. Depending on what software you're using, that might change, but you know, I think most people are fairly familiar with Sony Vegas or whatever, so that's that. So okay, hopefully that should be all the questions answered, because I know that was going to be a question, so I had to get that out the way. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope you guys learned something. All right, bye.